So, Mark, firstly, take me back to the beginning. Talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. What was that like?
I grew up in West Texas in a town called San Angelo, and I grew up working on farms and ranches and play sports. Football is big in Texas, as I'm sure you know. So I played football and soccer growing up. Those were the main two sports. I mean, I played baseball. Those are what I played through high school. Um, and then went uh, went to ended up going off to college at Texas A&M and decided to be an actor when I was in college.
So you decided that quite late on in life, really. You mentioned obviously college. Was there anything you wanted to do before that when you was growing up? What was your ambition?
Um, I mean, when I went to college, I thought I was going to move back to San Angelo after college and do something in my hometown, but I didn't really know. I was like, I thought maybe I'd be a teacher, maybe I'd go into the military. Um, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I didn't, you come from a small place and your world's pretty small um, until you find something bigger. And also just, I mean, it really was a movie, Dead Poet Society. I saw that movie and it kind of just changed me. Um, I guess it gave me the desire to open up my world a little bit, and I was like, I want to do what they made me feel.
Was that the moment where you sort of your whole outlook on your ambition and what you wanted to do just completely changed there in that one film?
Yeah, that film really did it, and I mean, I remember after I watched that film, I just couldn't get it out of my head what they made me feel, um, and they made me think about a bigger world than, or that movie made me think about a bigger world than what I'd grown up in.
And so from there, what was the next step? Did you actively go looking for a, an acting class, or what was your next move from to pursue this dream?
Um, I went up to I went up to New York at the um, uh, uh, because of some advice that I'd been given by a guy that grew up with my dad, who was a director, a TV director. Um, I didn't know him. They put me in touch with him, and he came from. My dad grew up in he had a class of like six people he graduated with. He was from a very very small town, and so I obviously, you know, I don't did I. No, we did have coffee one time. I've never worked with him. I've never. He just was like, I can't help you, but if you want to do this, you should go to New York and study at one of these places. And so I went. I was in college, and when I finally told my parents, they weren't. They were supportive, but they were also like, "You don't need to drop out of college." So I went up for a summer. Uh, it's a 2-year course, but they do a summer intensive just to kind of give you a taste of what it is. And so, I went to New York after my sophomore year. I actually did a play. I auditioned for Of Mice and Men, and I got a part in it. I mean, there were probably, I don't know how many parts are in that play, maybe 8 or 9, and there were probably 10 people that auditioned. So that's probably why I got the part.
Talk about that first audition. Do you remember much about it? Was it daunting? Was you nervous?
Um, yeah, I was definitely nervous. And I just remember feeling naked, um, and completely unsure of myself, and almost an embarrassment, but then also I remember afterwards feeling like I conquered something, even though it wasn't much. Um, and yeah, and then when I got the part, I was ecstatic, and then I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So it was, kind of trial by fire uh, type deal, and um, I do remember thinking when I was doing it, I was like, "What is this? What acting is like? Am I supposed to feel like I'm in the 1800s?" It was all very. I didn't know anything, so it was it was a good experience, especially just getting up and doing the play in front of audiences. But I at the time, I do remember thinking like, I have no idea what I'm doing up here. I'm saying I know all the words, but I don't know how to do what I'm doing. So, in that summer in New York, I learned a lot, and went back to school at A&M, and I got in an acting class, and it was not anything like the classes I had in New York. So I stopped taking classes, and I was like, I'll just figure this out. And did some more plays, not at the school, but in the community, and yeah, and it got easier. And I still didn't really know what I was doing until years later. I don't think.
After that first audition for of Mice and Men, you mentioned there, obviously you felt like you conquered something, but you was also very nervous. You felt naked. You weren't sure what you was doing there. Did the negative side of the feelings ever make you doubt going for a second audition or for another play at all?
No, um, I mean, I think what still lives with me today, and does lives with most actors. The insecurity of wondering if you're good enough, or if you're going to get another job. Um, I don't think that ever goes away. It becomes more normal. It wasn't that feeling of, there was there was the victory of like getting a part in the play, and then getting a part in another play. Um, but I guess dealing with that insecurity, I didn't know that it would last for 25 years. Um, well, I'm sorry. I'm doing a job right now, but I'm already starting to feel that like, what is going to happen after this? And that part never goes away.
Is it almost like a bit of a come down? So you get the high of getting the part, getting the role, you're obviously shooting, and then like you mentioned there, even while shooting, you're already thinking of the come down, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the come down, I think, happens in different ways. It depends on how much you love the part that you're playing, how much you love the material. Um, Sometimes having a job and just that maybe is, uh, you're getting a paycheck. The security of that is great. Um, and then I would say the insecurity you feel afterwards, because I won't name the job, but I did a job this last year that I was so bored, and at the same time I was very grateful because the industry was pretty dead. Like most of my friends were not working. Um, and I got done with it, and I was like, I didn't have any. There was no grieving of leaving that job. Um, but for instance, I, uh, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, like this show I did called The Outsider. Um, when I remember on my last day of filming that, it was there was almost like a depression that sat in because I didn't want to let it go. I enjoyed the material so much and had such a fun time, and it was a great group of people. And so I think there's varying degrees of it, depending on what the circumstances are.
It's funny you mention that because I interviewed a British actress in another episode previously, and we spoke about grieving a role and leaving that character behind because she said that she found that she would completely fall in love with this character that she would play, and she was so invested in being that character that she'd have to have almost like a grieving process to move on to the next role. Is that something that you find similar in roles that you love?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the outsider. I went in my. I remember going in my trailer and uh, I just sat in there for like I don't know. I was there for usually you go in, get out of your wardrobe, get dressed, and go home. And I ended up sitting in there like an hour, just like I was weeping like a baby at times, and then just shaking my head, not believing that it was over and that I wouldn't get to do it again. And I usually know that I'm not going to get to do it again because I usually die and everything. So, um, yeah, no, it definitely is a process. I felt the same way. I felt the same way about other jobs, and then some jobs I'm just so ready to leave. Uh, if you have creative differences with the people running the show or whatever, you're just like, let's just get this done and move on. But the hope is always that you choose a job with the right people that's material that you're going to love. It's not always the case. Sometimes you got to pay for things, and you know, you got to pay for life. So,
Absolutely. In terms of that process and that grieving process of leaving a character behind, when does that end? When do you move on? Is it when you get your next job? Is it something that potentially lasts even longer? I mean, that role there you mentioned on the outside, that was what, 2018, 19 when that came out?
uh, came out in 2020. We shot it in 2019. Yeah,
So obviously you go back a few years now and I can still see to you, obviously it's a role that you very much have a lot of love for.
yeah. I mean, I would go back and do that in a heartbeat. Um, Same with, with Russ on Ozark. Um, that was a little bit different because I was kind of given a nugget that like maybe Russ would wasn't done after the first season. I mean, I was done in a lot of ways, but I came back for some other episodes. Um, and that was it was such a joy to go back to that show at the 3 or 4 times I went back. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like, Jack on the outsider. I guess there's more of a grieving of I still have some grief around the first of all the material that I was given and the freedom that it gave me, uh, and also there's so many factors that are involved with that. It's the people that are who are the directors and the producers that are involved, and they just kind of let me run with it, and you don't always get that. Um, so yeah, no, it takes a while. I mean, I sat here and talked to me, I'd be like, God, I'd love to go back there. Um, I still miss that guy, uh, but life goes on, I guess.
It sure does. Take me back to, do you remember your first paid acting job?
Um, yeah. Uh, I mean, the first paid job was a commercial. Um, I did a series of commercials for this grocery store chain called Brookshire's in Texas. And I was like the superhero bag boy. Um, and I was blown away by I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe I was getting to make money doing it. And then I guess my first gig, uh, like paid on a film or TV show was like, it was this, no, oh, it was a, oh gosh, one of those terrible TV shows. It was called Arrest and Trial. And it was one of those shows that they like recreate a crime scene, and there was a guy talking in the background, and Joe and Susie at this point tied the man up, and then it cuts to what's happening. It was pretty bad. I've tried to find that episode, and I cannot find it. It's uh, I don't know what they've done with it.
You mentioned about the commercial when you said you couldn't believe you was going to get paid for this. Was that a sort of moment where you felt like I've made it, or was it just a big step into the world you want to be in?
Uh, no, it was just I feel like it was just a step. I mean, obviously getting a job gives you hope that you're going to get another job. Um, and I remember, I mean, if you cut to years later when I got a job on Generation Kill, because I was living in New York and I was waiting tables and running around auditioning. And when I got that job, I and it, I was getting paid more money than I'd ever been paid in my life, and it wasn't that much money. Um, I remember before I left, I was given, I think I got like a week's notice or something, and I was thinking, I made it, I made it, and then you realize that you never are. I mean, there are. It's a fight for every job. I feel like there's always somebody that you know wherever you are, you start like now you're competing against this group of people for this job, and these people have way more. They've had uh, they have a lot more visibility than you do. Um, and so I finally learned at the ripe age of like 29 or 30 that you never really make it. And then to like nail that home even further, I think it was in like 2014 or something. I did it. I went to New Orleans and did an episode of this show Treme, and I was flying home, and I sat next to Blythe Danner. I don't know if you know Black Danner, but you would recognize her if you saw her. She's had an incredible career. It's Gwyneth Paltrow's mom, and she's had an incredible career. And we talked all the way back to New York. And the one thing that I took away, at that time, she was probably in her 60s or so. And she was still worried about what job was going to be next. She had to give another job up to do the job in New Orleans. And, um, and I know very personally that it's different for women, especially when they're getting older. Um, Unfortunately, uh, white dudes, as we get older, there seems to be more jobs, and it's like the opposite with women. Um, but I was like, she's still. I was like, even after all these incredible things she's done, she still worries that she's not going to get another job. Um, or that, and to that point, like, it's rare to say I made it and like it's just going to be smooth sailing from here on out.
How
Um,
how tough is that? Because for a lot of people who will be listening and watching this will be thinking, you're an actor, you've got it made, what an amazing job, an amazing life you must have. But what is the reality of that, between jobs?
I mean, it's pretty. It can be pretty grueling, depending on I've been fortunate to I've worked consistently for the last you know 7 or 8 years. Um, so I haven't, around the strike, it was a little like, you know, when the strike was happening, it was kind of like everything seemed to reset. It was like when they come back, they're going to be wanting these, you know, they're going to be wanting people like top uh, actors to do shows, so people will watch it. Um, Fortunately, I did get jobs after that, but yeah, the in between. I mean, like right now, I'm I'll be done with this in a month and a half or so, and it's just kind of nerve wracking to we my wife and I have uh, a life to pay for, um, and it's it gets a bit we're okay, but you just think, what if what if people are just like, nah, not him anymore. Um, but I do remember back, you know, I had done some TV stuff. It was like before Ozark. Um, I'd go back home and people would be like, Hollywood. And everybody thought I was rich and had this incredible life. And I was like, no, I don't, I might work like a couple of months and then I may have like 5 months off and I'm just biting my nails trying to trying to think where the next penny's coming from. Um, but it always makes me laugh when people are like, "Oh, it's such a glamorous life," and I'm like, "Nah, not really." And I also, as I said, I pretty much die in everything, so I'm constantly looking for the next job.
We mentioned your first audition. What's the toughest audition you've ever had and why?
The toughest audition I've ever had. Let me think about that.
We'll come back to it.
Come back to it.
Um, and you've worked with some great people, Jason Bateman, Bill Pullman, Paddy Considine's one of my favorite actors. But who, in terms of who you work with, surprised you the most in terms of their acting talents?
Um, I guess I would say, uh, it's probably this girl Brooke Bloom. I did an indie film with years ago, and I didn't know her. She didn't know me, but she was just such an incredible person to work with and work off of. Um, and then, I even though I guess another person, even though always loved his work, but then was, when we were working together, like Ben Mendelsohn was just, he was just one of those gifts that, like, he was just, there was something different about it. And I was like, that's why he is who he is. Like, there's no, you're not getting fooled watching it. He was really incredible to work with.
What's been the biggest pinch me moment of your career so far?
Um, I think there's two that like stand out. Um, when when uh, I did the creator with Gareth Edwards, I remember my Zoom with him, and I thought it was just going to be a meeting, and we were going to chat, and he just offered it to me on the Zoom, and I was like, "What?" And then I got to work with Allison Janney, um, and I, we had the same schedule, so we would go to dinners and lunches and whatnot, and I was like, "This is somebody that I admire so much, and I'd get to sit here and and be with him." That, and then I did a film with Emma Thompson and Judy Greer last year that was, or when I got the call that I got this job out of the blue, and I remember I like got teary with my wife. I was like, I don't feel like I should be in those two women's company. This doesn't make sense to me. Um, I think those two are like the two top pinch me moments.
Do you, one thing I've sort of just gained from this conversation so far is obviously you mentioned you never really feel like as an actor you've made it. There's almost a lot in the reality of acting. It sounds like there's a lot of negative to it as well. But has there ever been a moment where you feel worthy, feel like you are where you should be and doing what you're meant to be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think therapy has helped with that. Um, but yeah, I do. I'm very grateful for every job I get. Um, and I have, I remember when that film with Emma Thompson came up, I was saying that to my wife, and she was like, "Babe, that's where you're meant to be." And it took me a minute to um, accept that, but uh, I think I think you kind of have to constantly remind yourself that uh, I'm not curing cancer or anything, but this is the one thing that I love to do and that I can to give to the world, whether it's liked or not. It's what I do.
You mentioned that's what you do. As well as acting, you also write and direct. What role do you enjoy the most?
Acting, yeah. My wife's a great writer and a great director, and I think she would love to just direct. I like getting people's words and getting to bite into some material and then probably live out some of my the things that I go to therapy for um, in a role.
What's your, excuse me, what's your process, Mark, in terms of evolving into a character? When you get a script, what do you do? What is your sort of process before you go to rehearsal?
I usually I try to find the one thing that makes that character click. When it could be, it may be on the page, it may not be on the page. Um, but I guess it's whatever makes me click with the character. Um, and and then I spend a lot of I'll just spend time with me and my fantasizing about that person, um, and just making them human. That's really the one thing, with a lot of like thrillers and horrors, uh, you can easily just play into that. But I find that if I can find the one thing that I can tap into that makes that person human, um, then that's what gets me going.
You mentioned your wife a few times, Lena. She's obviously best known for being in Game of Thrones. Does it make it easier having a spouse in the industry, or is it harder?
No, I mean, we've gotten to work together some, so that's been nice to like be in the same place. The only It's not hard, but when we're away from each other, we make it a point to every 2 or 3 weeks. Well, we try to do 2 weeks, 3 weeks max. Wherever we are, we meet up for whether it's 2 nights, but it's also fun. Like if we're not working, we have all day, every day together, and if I have an audition, she does it with me, and she's great, and she's incredibly witty and funny, and we have a big laugh, and um, it's also not, we get each other's schedules also. So I don't know if it's easier or harder, but it just works. Um, I think when you love somebody, you figure the rest out.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, as you know, mentioned when you love somebody, that person's always going to be there, and vice versa. When you may be struggling, like you mentioned about, maybe a come down of leaving a role that you really enjoyed, or potentially in between work and you're struggling to find your next role. Does it make it any easier having a spouse who understands that personally as well and knows how to go through that themselves?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And we share a manager, and so we can kind of get through those things together, um, and then get to celebrate together as well when the good things happen. So yeah, I think she knows when I need space, and I know when she needs space, and when it comes to work stuff, and um, whether it's leaving a job or going to a job or getting ready for a job, we give each other the space to do what we need to do, or to just be there for each other.
What is the greatest piece of advice you've received in your career?
Don't don't be an actor. I mean, it was well the guy that I mentioned earlier who grew up with my dad. That was the first thing he said. He was like, "Don't do it." Um, but if he was like, I can tell you how to be a lawyer, be a doctor. You can go to school, you can get these degrees, you can have a nice life, and uh, be a normal person. But if you're going to do it, you should go do this. And then he said, I have friends in New York who've been doing it for 20 years and they still haven't made it. Um, so I don't know if it put a fire under me or it gave me perspective of the reality of it. There's probably a mixture of both because I went to New York with the attitude that I'll do this for however long. Like I'll wait tables and do a job here. What I don't think there's anything else I want to do, and that was kind of the test was like if there was anything else I could do, I should go do it, and I couldn't think of anything. I mean, it wasn't like no. There was some long hard thought to doing this in the end.
Talk to me about one actor or actress who you would love to work with in the future. Who would it be and why?
Um, I really would love to work with Sam Rockwell. Um, I think he's one of the best out there. Uh, and I know Sam a little bit, and he's a great guy. So that's another reason. Um, I think he would be. I saw a play with him probably it was probably 20 years ago. I saw a play that he did at the Public Theater in New York, and he blew me away in that play, and it's never left me. In everything I see him in, I think he's just fantastic. So,
You mentioned you know him a little bit there. When you're working a job and you know somebody else on the set, does that make it easier in terms of that acting relationship?
um, trying to think. That doesn't really bother me. Like, I mean, my wife makes me laugh a lot, uh, and so there are times when we've worked together that we just can't keep a straight face because just because of our history. Um, but no, I mean, it's nice to have the familiarity with somebody. I mean, I guess, and you know, if I think back to Ozark, like when I came back, the times after I had developed friendships and relationships with the people on the show, and it was it was nice to be back uh, with them, with somebody that you knew. But I just as easily and happily do it with somebody I've never spent 2 seconds with. Um, it's kind of fun that way. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Martin, that brings me to my last question, and that's swinging back round to the one from earlier. The toughest audition you've had and why?
Um, I think Generation Kill was the toughest audition I ever had. Number one, because I felt an immense pressure because I'd never auditioned for anything of that size. Um, the I did know the assistant casting director, but I'd never gone in with producers and uh, all that. And it was David Simon who I was just the thought of him being in the room made me extremely nervous. the casting director was terrifying to me. She's a good friend now. Um, and I had to do this speech in the audition, and she like scared me so much. She was so intense, and I dropped the words, and I had my arms crossed and I had my pages under my arm, and I was like, I couldn't physically move and get them out from under my arm to see what it was. And she did this, and I was like, I should just walk out of the room. And then they came back, and I went back into it, and and then it ended up working out. And you know, turns out David Simon is like the coolest nerd on the planet, and he's not threatening at all. Um, so yeah, I think being with with producers like that, and um, the director and the casting director, it was such a big change for me. I had never done that before, so um, yeah, I think that was the hardest I ever had, and now I love auditioning. I mean, it was I like to have I like to just not really I like to be invested, but not too, but not needy. If you're needy, then they can feel it.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you and a real interesting insight as well into your life and your career.
All right. Thanks, man. Nice chatting with you.
And you.